Recording na ba? Okay. So let's start our continuation of the atomic structure discussion. Okay. So this time we're going uh, to have another lesson which is about the improvement of the knowledge of atomic structure, and later on that makita natin that will result in the formation of this electronic configurations ng ating atoms, no, or ng ating electrons. Okay, so what happened, no, kasi ang nangyari before is that we started with uh, FEWA. So we started with FEWA, the fire, earth, water, air elements from Aristotle. Okay, and then what happened after the FEWA, pumalit si Dalton, ay hindi, si Democritus pala muna. So ano ginawa ni Democritus? He theorized that everything, no, is composed of tiny indivisible particles called atomos, and he visualized atomos with a sphere that is indivisible. So that is his atomos. And the atomos idea was accepted by the scientific community, okay, through John Dalton. So, ano ginawa ni John Dalton? Nagulo na yung sulat. Dalton. So, what John Dalton did is to prove Democritus is correct, no? So, he conducted several experiments leading to his Dalton's atomic theory, no? Which has four postulates. Okay? So, ano yung apat na postulate yon? Number one is that all matter is composed of tiny indivisible particles called atom. The second postulate will be atoms of each element are different. No? So that means they behave differently. So you would not expect the atom of oxygen to behave the same as iron. Hindi naman kinakalawang yung oxygen, di ba? So yan. So for each element, there is a characteristic that is not the same as those atom of other elements. No? For the third postulate, Dalton said that in every chemical reaction, all your atoms are just rearranged. No? They are not consumed nor created. No? So hindi sila nagagamit, hindi rin sila na hindi sila nababawasan, hindi rin naman sila nadadagdagan. So, what happens is that there are just some sort of rearrangement, no? So, kung ano yung atoms mo before, yun din naman yung atoms mo after the chemical reaction. Okay? So, that is the law of conservation of mass. And then, lastly, when your atoms combine, they form compounds, no? So, yun yung mga postulate ni Dalton when it comes to his atomic theory. Dalton visualized his atom the same as how Democritus visualized atomos. Okay, so that means hard sphere pa rin yung ating model dito. So hard sphere pa rin yan. Bakit hard sphere? Kasi bilog daw yan na hindi mo na ma-split, no? So yan yung basic shape daw na nagko-compose sa lahat ng matter natin. Okay? And what happened after Dalton, Kuryente, Industrial Revolution? There came J.J. Thomson. So what J.J. Thomson did was he set up his cathode ray tube experiment wherein your atoms or your metal is going to be supplied with electrical source, no? So kukuryentehin mo yung iyong bakal, and then it will emit some sort of ray, no? Or tawag nila before doon, cathode ray. Okay. So upon his investigation, Thomson found out that those rays emitted by the atoms of the metal, no, when electrocuted, ay may charge, no? So he found out that the cathode rays have charge, no? And when he used magnet, he concluded that the charged particles ay negative, no? So negatively charged yung particles na lumalabas from the atom when it was electrocuted by Thomson. So doon niya na-conclude na ang atoms may particles pa inside it, no? So he called it the electrons, okay? So kay Thomson, ang ating hard sphere napalitan na siya ng plum pudding model. wherein ito yung atom mo. So you have a atom which is positively charged. However, its electrons are scattered on its surface. No? So yan yung mga electrons niya. And kapag kinuryante mo yan, tatalsik yung electrons mo. Okay? So that was one of the major development of the atomic structure, no. Nalaman nila that atom hindi pa siya yung pinakamaliit. Meron pang mas maliit na particle sa atom, and they call that subatomic particles. One of which is electron. Okay. Then what's next? Okay. Upon the discovery of radioactivity, mayroon tao, pangalan niya si Rutherford. So, ano ginawa ni Rutherford is that he investigated the radioactivity, no? And then, together with it, inalam niya rin yung atomic structure. So, he set up his alpha scattering experiment or the gold foil scattering experiment, no? So, Google nyo na lang, pero lahat ng tawag doon, same lang yung concept. May book kasi na ang nakalagay ay alpha scattering, merong book na gold foil experiment. Yung iba naman, pinagsasama nila yung dalawa. So, lahat naman ng yun, pare-parehas lang yung pinupunto. Okay, so Rutherford set up his alpha scattering experiment. Okay, so wherein he had this radioactive material that is beaming off alpha particles. Alpha particles are positively charged particles. No, so yun, and the radioactive material, the one that is spitting out alpha particles, is pointed towards the gold atoms in his gold foil. Okay? So, pinatamaan niya yung gold foil with the alpha particles. And what he found out is that the ray the ray of the alpha particle is scattered. So, hindi siya beamed through hindi lang siya nag-pass through sa foil. What happened is that the alpha particles scattered. So, that means there must be something in the atoms of gold that causes the scattering of the alpha particles. No, what he found out is that the atom doesn't look like what Thomson visualized. No, so according to his according to his experiment, he found out that the atom is composed mainly of empty space. No, so ang atom hindi talaga siya bilog, no. So ano 'yan, empty space wherein small portions of it, no, small portion of space, mayroong mga particles na nakalagay doon. So according to Rutherford, in the center of that space, no, in the center of that void, you have your positive center called the proton, positive center, and circling around it is the electrons. Okay, so nag-encircle daw yung electrons diyan. So that is called the nuclear model of an atom. Okay, so ano yung development natin? So from Thomson, who found out that there are electrons, si Rutherford, he found out that meron pang isang charged particles na nasa loob ng atom, no. So hindi lang siya electron, meron din positively charged particle inside the atom, and he called it the nucleus, no. And he found out also na atom is mostly an empty space, no, kasi most of the rays pass through the atom, however some scattered. Okay, the reason why they got scattered is that when your alpha particle hits the nucleus, then it will bounce off, no, it will bounce back. So ganun. So after Rutherford, what happened, no, si Chadwick. Si Chadwick naman, yung nucleus lang tinignan niya. Pero lagay pa rin natin dito. Chadwick. So what Chadwick did was he analyzed the nucleus, no, because he was confused. Why are the positive particles in the nucleus uh, not repelling each other, no? Bakit hindi daw sila nagre-repel sa isa't isa? Positively charged yon. So upon his investigation, he found out that the nucleus is not only composed of one charged particle, no. So, hindi lang isa yung laman ng nucleus, dalawa. So ano yun? meron daw neutron sa nucleus. Okay? So meron daw neutron in the nucleus. Okay? So the neutrons serve as cushion. Okay? So kunwari ayan yung mga protons natin. Yung proton yung mga voids, no, yung mga circle lang. So yung neutron, yun yung dark, no. So neutrons serve as the cushion, okay? Parang unan siya for the protons not to repel each other, okay? So yun yung parang purpose ng neutron according to him. And they also found out in general that the mass of the atom is concentrated on the nucleus, no. So that's why uh, the atomic mass is measured based on the mass of the particles in the nucleus because electrons are very light, no, to be considered, no. So yan yung improvement. Then after Chadwick, what happened? 19th century na. Okay, so 19 something, we have Niels Bohr. We have Niels Bohr on the scene. What Niels Bohr did is that he tried to explain some basic phenomena. Imagine nyo to. Fireworks. 'Di ba colorful? Question, bakit? Sagot nila, mayroon kasing metals doon. Question, bakit may color kapag sumabog yung metals? Yun yung hindi nila masagot. Okay? So imagine that. For example, you have a metal, ilagay nyo sa lutuan, what happens to the metal? Nagiging pula, di ba? Why? They don't know. Yun yung problem nila that time. So kapag yung metal nilagay mo sa apoy, nagkukulay. Minsan kulay green pag copper, minsan kulay red kapag iron. Ang question, why? Ang sagot nila is ito yung sabi ni Niels Bohr, that yung electrons in the atom is quantized. Okay? So when we say quantized, they are in orbits, no? So may energy level daw according to Niels Bohr. So that means the electron is not just swirling around, they are actually in orbit. So that's according to Niels Bohr. So they orbit the nucleus, okay? And for each energy level, there's a corresponding electron number for that. Ano naman yung kasagutan diyan sa ilaw, no? Kasi ganito, punta na tayo dito sa main PowerPoint. Okay? So, ano ba yung light, no? So, light is just a wave, no? And also, it could be a particle. Okay? So, yun yung light part. Wave-particle duality ng light which made Einstein won his Nobel Prize, no? Doon talaga siya nanalo sa dual properties ng wave, not sa general relativity. Okay? So, yun, according to their observation, light acts as wave and sometimes it acts as particle. So, let's focus on the wave properties of light. So, yung light natin, that is just caused by the oscillation of energy in space, no? In electromagnetic space, no? So, yun, dalawa yan. So, electromagnetic spectrum and sa 3D space, no? So, kapag nag-oscillate yung ating energy or yung ating particle, it will emit light, okay? So, depending on the oscillation, may corresponding wavelength for that, no? And for each wavelength, may iba't ibang uri ng light na pwede ma-produce, no? So, for example, the oscillation is very low, then we have radio waves, microwaves, infrared. However, if the oscillation is quite good enough, no? Pag mabilis mag-oscillate yung ating particles, doon siya nagkakaroon ng liwanag, no? So doon siya nagiging kulay red, kulay yellow, at yun yung nangyayari sa ating metals kapag sinunog mo sila. So what happens in the metal is that the electrons uh, travels from one orbital to another orbital. So kapag yung electron mo nag-jump from one energy level to another energy level, nagba-bounce-bounce yun. And the oscillation made by the electron when it travels to different energy levels, that causes the material to glow, no? So yun yung reason ba't lumiliwanag ang metal. It is just the electrons bouncing up from one energy level to another and that produces light. Okay? So, yun lang yun. Yun yung sagot ni Niels Bohr doon. Excuse me. So yun yung sagot ni Niels Bohr, why may liwanag ang bakal kapag sinunog mo. So sabi niya, for example, I have this electron here. If I put it in fire, pag nilagay ko siya sa apoy, the fire actually increases the energy of the particles, no? So pinapataas nun yung energy ng particles, no, by providing heat energy. So as a result, the electron may jump from one level to another level. Then once the energy is used, pwede na siya bumalik sa baba. And then aakyat uli siya, then bababa siya. Akyat baba, akyat baba. And later on, yung oscillation ng particle, yung oscillation ng electron between the energy level, that causes waves, and then yung waves na yon, if that is energetic enough, that will be visible light. Okay, so dun yun yung dahilan ba't may colors tayo. Okay, however, if your oscillation is very strong enough, then you can have much stronger types of waves such as UV rays, X-rays, and gamma rays, no? So yun. So it's just based on the oscillation of light. Okay. So that's the improvement. So imagine we just started with the hard sphere, and ngayon we can explain why objects glow when heated, no? It has something to do with the electrons lang. Okay? So yun. Doon na pumasok si Niels Bohr, and then they found out that for each element there is a corresponding spectra, or there is a corresponding light, no, for each element. They glow certain colors talaga. Okay, so ito yung example natin diyan. Hindi nyo naman kakabisaduhin yan, kaya skip na tayo. Okay, so yun yung ganap ng model ni Bohr. Okay, so according to Bohr, when electrons jump from one energy level to another energy level, it involves the absorption and the emission of light. Okay, so pag nag-bounce siya between those levels, nagkakaroon ng liwanag. Okay, so it emits light. Okay, so yun lang. Yan lang naman. So punta pa tayo sa after ni Niels Bohr. So after Niels Bohr, what happened? Okay? So yung mga scientists, medyo medyo tanggap nila si Niels Bohr, no? So okay lang yan, tanggap ka namin. Weird, no? Pero parang ganun yung nangyari. So they accepted the fact that electrons are quantized, meaning they orbit in energy levels. However, they are quite confused pa rin. Why? Kasi sabi nila, bakit two-dimensional yan? We live in three dimensions, di ba? So that means, hindi lang yan pa-orbit. So it must be something na 3D. Okay? So kailangan naka 3D yung ating atoms, no? Dami nilang demand, no? So doon papasok ang last person natin, si Schrödinger. So si Schrödinger, naniniwala siya sa ginawa ni Niels Bohr. So naniniwala siya sa ginawa ni Niels Bohr. However, he improved it, no? He used statistics, no? Ayan, so yan yung ganap. He uses statistics, no, to find the probability at which your electrons are located in an atom. Okay? So gumamit na siya ng statistics in order to determine the probable location of the electrons in an atom. Sabi niya, wala yan sa orbit. It is somewhere in there. Ang tanong, paanong somewhere? Gumamit siya ng stat odd. It must be probably there. So parang yun yung nangyari sa kanila. So instead of placing the electrons in orbit, according to Schrödinger, electrons occupy certain shape for our atoms, no? May kanya-kanyang shape yung electrons, and yun yung kanilang energy levels. Okay? Kaya dun na naimbento yung quantum numbers. Okay? So ano-ano yung mga quantum numbers natin? So the first one would be the principal quantum number. So what is the principal quantum number? This is the energy level na sinasabi ni Niels Bohr. So parang kinopya niya lang din, pero in-improve niya. So as you go further down the periodic table, as you can see, yung ating periodic table, we have 7 periods here. So yung period is yung pa-horizontal. we have 7 periods here. So that means for each period, meron niyang corresponding energy level. So on the topmost part of your periodic table, yun yung first energy level, yung baba, second, third, and so forth until you reach the seventh energy level. As electrons, uh, as atoms pala, I have to make it ng periodic table ka. Wait lang ha. Yan. So, as atoms gain more electrons, ibig sabihin, pag lumalaki na yung atom, it means bumababa ka na ng periodic table. So if the atoms get bigger, then the electrons occupy further distance from the nucleus, no. So mas lumalayo siya sa nucleus. Okay? So that means the atom at the lower part of the periodic table is bigger compared to those who are on the top of the periodic table because electrons, no. Yun yung dahilan. Pag marami ng electrons, lumalayo-layo na yung electrons. Okay? Yung distances ng electrons towards the nucleus, that is described by the principal quantum number. Okay? So kapag 1, let's say kapag 1 lang, maliit lang yung atom mo. Pag 2, medyo malaki siya. Pag 3, malaki na talaga siya. Kasi ang dami ng electrons na nag-occupy sa iyong space around the atom. Okay? So that's the principal quantum number. Okay? The next quantum number would be the angular momentum quantum number. So what is an angular momentum quantum number, or L? So the L describes the shape of the cloud, of the electron cloud. Kasi for each electron cloud, there is a corresponding shape for that. Okay? So our L has values of n minus 1. So it should be 1 unit lower than your principal quantum number. And for each value of L, pag 0 yan, that means the shape is S, no? S orbital. Kapag L is equal to 1, then that means the shape is p orbital shape, no? Kapag L is 2, then that means your electron shape is d orbital shape, no? And kapag L is 3, then that means your electron is shaped like an f orbital. So ano itsura ng mga SPDF orbitals natin? Okay, so medyo lumalapit na tayo sa electron configuration, ha. Ka-SPDF na tayo. Okay. So ano ba itsura ng s orbital? So when we have s orbital, the itsura ng atom, konyo pa, no? So, yung itsura ng atom natin is just spherical. Okay? So, whenever your atom has the quantum number whose L is equal to 0, ayan yung itsura niya. Bilog lang siya. So, that means the electron is evenly distributed around the nucleus. No? So, nakapalibot lang sila around the nucleus. However, if your electron begin occupying higher quantum numbers or angular momentum quantum number, yung L, pag nag-increase na yan, mag-iiba na yung shape niya. So from spherical, you will come with the dumbbell. Okay? So ito yung dumbbell shape, no? So para siyang dalawang choco butternut na pinagdikit. Okay? Hindi ko gusto yung lasa nun, pero sige. Sabi ng Facebook, magandang example daw yan. So ayan, parang dalawa siyang choco butternut na pinagdikit. So yun yung dumbbell shape. Okay? So when your electrons are found in L equals 1, yan yung shape ng ating atom. Yan yung shape ng electrons around the atom. Okay? And meron yang 3 variants. Kasi remember, we live in 3D space. And yun naman yung point ni Schrödinger. Na we live in 3D space, so that means lahat dapat ay 3D. So, according to Schrödinger, if you have p orbital or dumbbell shape orbital, may 3 possible orientations yan. So, pwedeng along the x-axis, pwedeng along the y-axis, pwedeng along the z-axis, yung iyong orbital. Okay? By the way, for your reference, I will upload the PowerPoint after the class, no? Para may copy kayo ng mga pictures. Okay? So, yun. So, according to Schrödinger, again, yung shape natin, may three different versions yan. It could be the dumbbell shape that is in the x-axis. It could be in the y-axis, and it could be on the z-axis. Okay. Ngayon naman, if L is equal to, then we have 5 variations for that. So, ito naman, 4 na choco butternut na yung katumbas nito. We call this the clover leaf shape, no? Except for this one. Ano to? Dalawang choco butternut na may donut sa gitna. Ganun na lang, isipin natin. So, yan yung d orbital shapes, and it has 5 versions, each of which ay oriented at different axes, no? So, we have the x, y, and z axis for the 3D space. So, yan. Yung ating orbitals, yung ating electrons, they occupy those orientations, no? So, we have 5 variants for the orbitals. And then, for, wala tayong F orbital sa picture. Yung F orbital, that is complex, no? Pakita ko na lang sa inyo, Google tayo. F orbital. Para makita nyo yung picture, ganito yung itsura niya. Malala siya kaya hindi na siya sinasama madalas. Okay? So, yan. So, this is the itsura ng F orbital. Sa Reddit pa talaga nakapost na. So, yan. Medyo complex na siya to be described, no? So, yan. If your L is equal to 4, then that means your electrons look like one of these 7 possible shapes. Okay? So, yun. So, ano mapapansin natin, no? Na yung ating atoms, they do not appear the same, no? Instead, they appear sa iba't ibang shape, no? Pwede yung shape niya ay dumbbell. If the L is 0, pwedeng siya ay spherical. Kapag L is 0, pwedeng dumbbell yung shape niya. If L is equal to 1, pwede siyang clover leaf. O kaya itong weird na to. Okay? Pwedeng ganyan yung shape niya. Okay? So, that's the second quantum number. Okay? The third quantum number will be the magnetic quantum number. So ang magnetic quantum number, it tells us about what orientation of the orbital our electron looks like in 3D space. 'Di ba? Tignan nyo, ang daming option. For L, isa lang yung shape kasi spherical lang yan. Kapag p orbital, ano yung shape? Tatlo. Pwedeng nasa x, nasa y, nasa z axis. Kapag d orbital, pwedeng 5 yung options mo. So, for us to address kung ano ba talaga yung shape ng ating electron, given that certain quantum number, we can use the magnetic quantum number. So, it will tell us kung ano yung shape ng ating atom, kung ano yung specific orientation niya in 3D space. Now, so for L equals 0, then your value for ML or the magnetic quantum number is just 0. Okay? So 0 lang yung value natin for ML if your L is equals to 0. However, if your L is 1, so the values permitted will be -1, 0, and +1. So ano yung nagko-correspond dun sa -1, 0, +1? So ito 'yon, yung 3 orientations ng p orbital. Pwedeng ito kapag -1, ito kapag 0, ito kapag +1. Kunwari yung electron makikita mo sa +1, ito yung shape niya. Okay? So yan yung shape niya. Mamaya may exercise tayo para mas ma-apply natin yung pinagsasabi ko, ha? So note lang muna kayo dyan sa notebook niyo. Kunwari, yung electron makikita mo sa 0, ano shape niya? Ito. Okay? So, yun yung idea ng Schrödinger. Kunwari, -1 yung electron, asan siya? Ito yung itsura niya. Okay? And then for d orbital, we have 5 options kasi 5 shapes yung pwede, di ba? So, ito yon. Kunwari, ang iyong ang iyong electron ay nasa -2 position. So, that means ito yung shape niya. Mari siya ay nasa negative 1 position, ito yung shape niya. Mari siya ay nasa 0 position, ito. Excuse me. And ito kapag sa 1 and ito kapag sa 2. Okay? So yun. So depending on the location of your electron in the magnetic quantum number, may kanya-kanyang orientation yon in space. Okay? And the last quantum number would be the MS or the magnetic spin quantum number. It only has values of positive 1/2 and negative 1/2 now. So, yan. So, paano yan nangyari, no? So, ano yan? Mga statistics yan, no? So, ang sabi nila, ang probability ng electron is that it could either be rotating clockwise or counterclockwise. So, if it rotates clockwise, then it is positive 1/2, no? If it rotates counterclockwise, then that will be negative 1/2, no? So, parang ganun yung sinasabi nila doon. However, for the purpose of our class, we will represent the magnetic spin quantum number as two types of arrow. It could be an upward arrow, pwede ring downward arrow. So kapag upward arrow, that will be 1/2. Kapag downward arrow, it will be negative 1/2. No? Okay, saan natin magagamit tong idea na to? We can use this idea kapag gagawa na tayo ng orbital diagrams. No? So yung quantum numbers magagamit na natin yan para i-describe yung shape ng ating atoms. No? What else? So iyon, this is one principle that is true for all the atoms. No? According to Schrödinger, there is a unique quantum number for each electron in an atom. So there must be no duplicates or triplicates of the quantum number kasi for each electron may kanya-kanya silang quantum number talaga. So parang yung zip code, no, for each provinces, for each city or let's say barangay, may corresponding zip code number yan. And zip codes are unique, no? So hindi yan nauulit. Yung zip code, yun yung parang quantum number ng electrons natin. Okay? So yun. That rule was said by Pauli in his Pauli's exclusion principle. Ang statement doon is no two electrons in an atom can have the same four quantum numbers, no? So hindi pwede pare-parehas yung quantum number. So that's unique, no? So para lang yung upuan sa theaters, no? Kanya-kanya 'yan. Walang duplicates, okay? So yan. So let's summarize again. So this is our quantum numbers. So again, ano meaning kapag n? N tells us about the principal energy level of an atom. Basically, it just tells us where your atom is in the periodic table. So for example, it has n equals 1, then your atom is located on the first period of your periodic table. So it could be either hydrogen or helium. If yan ay n equals 2, then it is located on the second period of the periodic table. So it could be lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon. Okay. So if it is in energy level 7, then it could be anything from period 7, such as francium, radium, etc. Okay. So ganun. So basically, yung N, it tells us kung asang period ka na sa periodic table mo. Yung L naman, it has values less than your N. So kung 1 yung N mo, so L must be 0. Kapag 2 yung N mo, your L must be 0 and 1. It should not be equal to 2. So basta lower than 2, pwede 0. Kapag N mo is 3, your L should be 0, 1, 2, pero hindi pwedeng 3 and beyond. Okay? So again, ano meaning ng L na to? Yung L, it tells us about the shape of the electron cloud, no? So it tells us kung ano yung shape ng electron cloud. Excuse me. Kapag L is 0, then that means your cloud looks like a sphere. Spherical yung shape niyan. So we call that the S orbital. If your L is equals to 1, then your electrons look like a dumbbell. So, yun, kapag L is equals to 1, naka-dumbbell shape siya. Kapag 2 naman yan, then that's the orbital shape, yung clover leaf, no? And kapag yan ay 3, that is F orbital looking. So, yun yung complex shape that I can't even describe na kasi complex yung shape niya. Okay? So, ganun lang. So, for you to determine the values for L, just take note that it is always less than the N. So, it could be 0, but less than the N. Okay? What does this tell us? Anong ulit tawag sa L? Azimuthal quantum number. So, azimuthal quantum number tells us about the shape of the electron cloud. Okay? For ML naman, this is the magnetic quantum number. So it tells us about the orientation of your shape. No? So kapag 0 yung L mo, 0 din yung ML mo. However, if yung L mo ay 1, then your ML has 3 possible values. Again, paano nga ba naging 3 yan? Because there are 3 orientations for the dumbbell. Your dumbbell could be either on the X, the Y, or the Z axis. That's why we have 3 values here. So, yun yung meaning ng tatlong yan. -1 kapag X, 0 kapag Y, 1 kapag nasa Z, kapag nasa Z axis yung dumbbell mo. Just like here sa pinakita natin. Okay? So, ayan. So, pag ito -1, ito 0, ito yung 1, +1. Okay? So kapag d orbital ka naman, so your L value is 2, so that means your ML could have values ranging from -2 to +2. Okay? So from -L to +L yung range natin. So that means may 5 shapes tayo dito. Bakit? Kasi according sa picture natin kanina, d orbitals have 5 orientations in space. No? So yan yung 5 orientations niya in the space. So, yan. Kunwari, nasa -1 yung electron mo. Then, ito yung itsura niya. Kunwari, yung electron mo nasa +2. Then, ito yung itsura niya. Okay? So, yan. Yun yung meaning niya. Hindi lang siya basta number. May meaning yan. Kasi ako nung high school ako, alam ko number lang yan. Yung pala, may corresponding shape siya. No? Yan lang. Kaya ako nag-BS Chem. Hindi, nag-BS Chem ako para sa license. Valid ID kasi yan. So, alam ko kayo rin. Psych kayo. Hopefully, no, in the near future, makuha nyo yan. So, ganun lang. Again, N, it tells us about the principal quantum number. It tells you where are you in the periodic table. Kung anong period ka or anong row. Ang L naman, these have values less than the N, and it could be 0. So L tells us about the shape of our electrons. It could be 0, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. Kapag 0, spherical ang shape. Pag 1, dumbbell. Kapag 2, cloverleaf. Pag 3, or F orbital, complex. No? Yung ML naman, it describes the orientation of in space of your shape. It tells you ano yung orientation nito sa space. So for 0 na L, ML is also 0. If your L is 1, that will have values -1 to +1. If your L is 2, then ML will have values of -2 to +2. Okay? Okay. Ito naman, number of orbitals. No, so since we have only one distinct shape, no, for ML equals 0, or L equals 0, since isa lang yung shape na pwede natin magawa dyan, it only has one orbital, no? So we can represent that as isang box, no? Okay? Mamaya gagawa tayo nito, yung mga box-box. Okay, so later on, gagawin natin yung mga box-box na yan. If you're going to represent L equals 0, kapag spherical yan, then isang box lang gagamitin natin. Okay? And we will designate it as 1S or 2S, no? Or 3S, no? So, ganun. Again, paano ginagawa itong designation na to? Kopyahin mo lang yung N. Then, kung ano yung shape yun yung lalagay mo after the principal quantum number. So, kunwari, 1, then 0 yan. Ano ba yung 0? S. So, ibig sabihin yan, 1S yun. Yung shape niyan ay bilog lang. Okay? And that could be that could be visualized with one box only. Okay? O, kunwari, ito, 2S. Pag 0, S yan. So, 2S. Pag 3, 0, 3S. Okay? So, yun. Pero kapag yan ay 1, then you will call it 2P, 3P. Okay? And kapag yan ay 2, we call that 3D, and so on. Okay? Okay, so for L equals 1, we have 3 orbitals in there. Bakit 3 orbitals? Kasi tatlo yung shapes, no? For each shape, isang kanya-kanyang orbital yan. So we can represent p orbital with 3 boxes. Okay, so tatlong boxes na magkakadikit yung representation natin for p orbital. And then later on for the d orbital, we have 5 shapes. So that means we have 5 orbitals or 5 boxes sa ating orbital diagram later. No? So ganun lang. Kung ilan yung ML, ganun karami yung orbitals. No? Ayan. By the way, ilang electrons kada orbital? So according sa rules, no? Mamaya marami pa tayong rules na makikita. There should be at least 2 electrons in an orbital. One is positive 1/2, the other is negative 1/2 in terms of magnetic spin. Okay? So para mag-cancel out yung charges. Okay? So tig-isa sila. I mean tig-dalawa kada orbital. So isang pataas, isang pababa yung electrons diyan. Okay, so let's have a quick question. How many 2p orbitals are there in an atom? Ay, parang mali yung question. Ano ba yung pinupunto na ito? Tama lang pala. How many 2p orbitals are there in an atom? Ilan yung shapes? Pag nakita nyo yung orbitals, isipin nyo shapes para mas mabilis nyo ma-recall. Ilang shape meron sa 2p orbital sa isang atom? Or in chemistry words, how many 2p orbitals are there in an atom? So since we know, kapag P, ang value ng L ay 1, so that means ML will have values of -1, 0, +1. So since we have 3 values for ML, that means there are 3 orbitals or 3 shapes for the 2p orbital. Okay? So yan. Next one. How many electrons can be placed in the 3D subshell? So 3D subshell, ilang electrons daw ang kaya in total? That means yung buong 3D. That means lahat ng orientation included dyan. Ilang electrons kaya niyan lahat. Okay? So ang focus natin is yung D. No? So D is equivalent to L equals 2. No? So kapag D orbital yan, 2 yung value for L. So that means we have 5 different shapes here. And 5 shapes, no, or 5 orbitals can have 2 electrons each. So that means yung 5 orbitals, they can hold 10 electrons in total. Okay? So again, kada shape, tigda dalawang electron ang kaya. So that means we have a total of 10 electrons for 3D subshell. Okay? So yun lang. So punta tayo dito. So when atoms fill up their electrons, they follow the Aufbau principle. Ito, nag-fill out na tayo ng energy levels. When atoms fill up the energy levels, they fill out the lowest orbital first, meaning nun yung pinakamalapit sa nucleus. So ano yung orbital na pinakamalapit sa nucleus? The 1s orbital kasi maliit lang yung shape. Okay? So, yun yung Aufbau principle. Sa baba ka muna mag-fill, then saka ka aakyat. Okay? So, for example, mag-fill tayo. 1 for hydrogen, isang symbol lang yan. Okay? So, for helium, Since may 2 electrons tayo and we know that 1s orbital can hold 2 electrons, okay? So, lalagyan natin yan ng second arrow pababa. Pababa, okay? Next one. Paano kapag puno na yung 1s ng dalawang electron? 1 is up, 1 is down. Saan napupunta yung susunod na electron? Sa next energy level, which is the 2s, no? For example, we have lithium. So, si lithium, gagawin niya, i-fill niya yung 2s orbital ng isang excess electron niya. Okay? So, ayan. And then, kunwari, may isa pang electron. Let's have beryllium. So, for beryllium, we have 4 electrons. Saan mapupunta yung isa pang additional electron? Eh di sa 2s pa rin. Okay? So, ayan yung kanyang energy diagram. No? So, for beryllium. Mamaya na tong electronic configuration. Ha? Daanan natin yung mamaya. For boron, we have 5 electrons. Okay? So, saan pupunta yung electron after the 2s orbital? Eh, sa next energy level, which is 2p. So, yan. For carbon, which has 6 electrons, saan mapupunta yung isang electron? Di doon pa rin sa 2p kasi hindi pa siya completely filled. Ilang electrons ba kaya ng 2p? 6 in total kasi for each orbital, for each shape, tigda dalawa. So 2, 4, 6, 6 yan dapat in total. But here is the question. Ano yung question? Saan mo ilalagay yung isa pang electron? Di ba 5 na to? So isa pa para maging carbon yan. Saan mo ilalagay yon? Ipa-partner mo ba yon dito? Or ilalagay mo kung saan? So papasok na tayo sa hindi mo sure kung ganyan ba talaga, no? So, or ganon. So, yan. Hindi mo sure saan mo ilalagay yung ating electron, no? Ano yung kailangan natin malaman? Yung next rule, the Hund's rule. So, according to Hund's rule, when you have degenerate orbitals, meaning ng degenerate orbitals is multiple orbitals. Okay? So, maraming orbitals. Ano yung mga maraming orbitals? Yung p orbital, yung d orbital. So, since yung p orbital may 3, so tawag doon degenerate orbital. Yung d orbital may 5 orbitals, tawag doon ay degenerate orbital din. Yung s orbital, hindi yung degenerate kasi isa lang yon. Okay? So, when you have multiple orbitals in your subshell, okay, or degenerate orbital, ibig sabihin nun, maraming orbitals ka sa energy shell na yon, then, ang kailangan mo daw gawin is ganito. The most stable arrangement is when you have parallel spin. Okay, is the greatest number of parallel spin. Ano yung interpretation natin doon? Kung ang nilagay mo ay up, then, ang susunod mong ilalagay dapat ay up din muna. Okay? So, hindi ka muna magpe-pair. Instead, kailangan parallel siya with what you have written first, no? Which is yung up. Sir, pwede ba isulat ko muna yung down? Hindi siya ginagawa. So, usually up talaga muna before down. So, kung ito ay up, that means the next electron must also be up since this is a degenerate orbital. Okay? So, kailangan may up pa dito. So, yan. For carbon, the electron must be placed there. For nitrogen, okay, so may isa pa tayong excess electron. So, we already have 6 electrons here. 7 yung kay nitrogen. Ano gagawin natin? Saan mo ilalagay yung isa pang electron? Pwede ka na ba mag-pair? No. Kasi may isa pang bakante. And according to Hund's rule, you must make the parallel spin muna, no? Gawa ka muna ng parallel spin. Kasi kapag pinair mo yan, malungkot tong isa. So, hindi siya filled, no? So, kailangan i-parallel mo muna siya with the other degenerate orbitals, no? So, naka-up muna yan. Then, once completely filled na, yung tigi-isang orbital, may tigi-isa na silang electrons, then doon ka na pwede mag-down spin. Doon ka na pwede mag-pair. Okay? So, ang rule, kapag bakante pa yung iba, punan mo muna. Then, saka mo sila partneran. Okay? So, ganun. So, kailangan mag-intay until they get their partners. Okay? Parang life lang, di ba? So, antay ka lang until you get your uh, opposite spin. Okay? So, that's how we fill out the electrons in an atom. Susunod na tanong, after 2p, saan mapupunta yung electrons? 3s. After 3s, saan mapupunta? 3p. Then susunod, 4s, 3d, 4p, 5s, 4d. Then what's next? Okay. So, yung ibang students, ang ginagawa, they memorize a mnemonic device. Yung si Sally pumunta sa party, si Daddy pumunta sa disco, may mga ganun. Ayoko gawin yon kasi may shortcut doon. Ganito na lang gagawin nyo. Okay, so what you're going to do is, sa paper, sulat nyo lang isang column ng ng s orbital. Sa next column, may may p orbital, then may 3 orbital, may d orbital, and may f orbital ka. So, ganun gagawin mo. So, ito yung pattern. So, s muna dito, p dito, d dito, then f doon. So, yung S, mag-start yan with 1. Yung P, mag-start yan with 2. Yung 3, yung D, mag-start yan with 3. Yung F, mag-start yan with 4. And then, you will get the diagonal of each row. Ang tawag dito ay Christmas tree method. Bakit? Gawin ko siya para makita niyo yung pagiging Christmas tree niya. So, start tayo. 1S, 2S, 3S. So, yan yung column ng S, followed by the P. So, sa 2 ka mag-start maglagay ng P. Followed by D. So, sa 3 ka mag-start maglagay ng D. But 3 on 4 yan. Followed by F. Sa F, dun ka mag-start sa 4. Paano naging Christmas tree yan? So, imagine nyo na lang ha. Tuloy ko lang onte. 4D, 5D. Okay, so paano yung naging Christmas tree? Tignan nyo. Pag gagawa ka ng diagonal, pababa. So, 1, followed by 2, followed by 2p, 3s. Okay, followed by 3p, 4s. Ano yung susunod na diagonal? 3d, 4p, 5s. So, yun yung pattern. Yun yung pagkakasunod-sunod. Followed by 4d, 5p, 6s. Then, susunod na diagonal, 4f, 5d, 6p, 7s. Di ba parang Christmas tree lang ang itsura niya? Lagyan mo ng star sa taas. So, yan yung dahilan ba't tawag namin dyan, Christmas tree method. Okay? So, mas madali ito gawin kasi hindi mo nakakabisaduhin. Yung si Sally pumunta sa party, si Daddy pumunta sa disco, etc. etc. Nasaan ang 15 billion? Hindi mo nagagawin yung ganon. Ang gagawin mo lang, you will write a column for the S, the P, the D, and the F orbitals. Then, you will create diagonals. No? Kung sino yung unang tamaan, pababa, siya yung i-fill out mo muna. So, you begin with 1S, followed by 2S, then 2P, 3S, 3P, 4S, then 3D, 4P, 5S, and later, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's how we fill out the periodic table. Ganyan yung pag-fill out ng electrons ng atom. Okay, so we start with the lowest energy level first, followed by the highest energy levels. Okay, so punta na tayo sa usapang electronic configuration. Okay, so paano natin gagawin yon? Okay, so pwede mag-start tayo with our energy diagram. For example, this one. Bilangin mo lang kung ilang electrons meron ka kada subshell. Okay? So for example, for hydrogen, we have 1 electron. So its electronic configuration must be 1s1. Meaning ng 1s, may electron ka sa 1s, tapos yung exponent na 1, meaning nun, may isa kang electron doon. So for hydrogen, that's 1s1. You have 1 electron in the 1s orbital. Ano uli yung purpose ng exponent? It tells you ilang yung electron sa 1s orbital mo. Okay, so yan. Let's have helium. So we have 2 electrons for helium. Saan mo ilalagay yung isang electron? Kapartner ni 1s. So ano na yung electronic configuration yan? That will be 1s2. Bakit? May dalawang electron sa 1s. 1s2. Okay? Hanggang 2 lang kapag s. Kasi nga, tigda dalawa lang kada energy level, kada orbital pala. Okay? So kada orbital, dalawang electrons lang. So wala akong makikitang 1s3, 1s4, bad yun. Okay? Hanggang 2 lang. Kasi 2 lang yung kaya ng box. Kunwari, 3 na yung electron mo. Saan mapupunta yung isang electron? Sa 2s. Di ba? So, ang tawag dyan, 1s2, then 2s1. Okay? So may dalawa ka sa 1s followed by isa sa 2s. So 1s2, 2s1. Again, the exponent will tell you how many electrons you have for that energy for that orbital. Okay? So ganun. Let's have beryllium, 4 na electrons. Di doon, partner siya kay S. So anong gagawin natin? Alamin natin electronic configuration yan. Start from the lowest energy, 1s2, followed by the next energy level, 2s2. So hanggang 2 lang kapag s orbital. Okay? Let's have boron, 5 electrons. Di sa p orbital mapupunta yung electron niya. Okay? Ano yung tawag natin dyan? Ano electronic configuration yan? 1s2, 2s2, 2p1. Okay? So there are 2 electrons in 1s, 2 electrons in 2s, and 1 electron in 2p orbital. Okay? Ayun. Yung carbon dito na. So yung carbon, balik natin. So for carbon, ito yung kanyang diagram. So dalawa sa s, dalawa sa 2s, and dalawa sa 2p. So that will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p2. Okay? So yan. Kung ilan lang yung electrons, it doesn't matter kung ano yung orientation niya kapag electronic configuration. Then let's have nitrogen. That will be 1s2. Ito yan, 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. Okay? So yun yung kanyang electronic configuration. And next one, we have oxygen. Okay? So for oxygen, that will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p4. Okay? And then for fluorine, we have 9 electrons. So ano yan? 1s2. Ay, asan yung laser? 1s2, 2s2, 2p5. And for neon, 10 electrons. So that means its electronic configuration will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p6. Okay? So ganun lang. And so on and so forth. Okay? So yan, we're almost done. Excuse me. So, paki-remember na lang to ha, kung paano mag-fill out ng orbitals ng ating atoms. So, anong importance ng electron configuration? So, the electron configuration will tell us how electrons are distributed among the orbitals in an atom. So, it tells us kung asaan yung electrons, kung kompleto na ba yung electrons no, sa iyong orbitals. Okay? So, yan. So, ayan, you have your principal quantum number at the front, your angular momentum quantum number or the shape, followed by the number of electrons in that subshell. Okay? Yung ginawa natin kanina sa yung may diagram, tawag doon ay orbital diagram. So we can represent the orbitals with boxes, no? Or pwedeng ganito na lang din as blanks, no? We can represent them as blanks, no? One blank for each shape, no? Or for each orientations. Okay? Practice tayo. What is the electron configuration of magnesium? Huwag kayo titingin sa periodic table na merong electron configuration. So, itong akin, wala siyang electron config. Atomic mass lang meron. So, sige. So, magnesium, ano yung kanyang atomic number? 12. Sabi natin, if we have an atom that is neutral, then, kung ilan yung electron niya, equal yon sa dami ng ng protons, di ba? So, if your atom is neutral, pag walang charge, then ang kanyang dami ng electron ay same as the number of protons. Okay? So, yun yung diniscuss natin last time. So, that means magnesium here, since wala naman nakalagay na charge, the number of electron is also 12. Okay, so, we have 12 electrons for magnesium. So, yung 12 electrons na yun, ikakalat natin sa kanya-kanyang energy level. Okay? So, let's start. Kunwari, nakalimutan nyo. Saan nga pala ako ang mag-umpisa? Gawa ka ng Christmas tree. Okay? Gawa ka muna Christmas tree para mag-start ka na. Ito na lang muna. Ay, 4 pala. Okay, gawa tayo Christmas tree. Pababa muna. Okay, so 1s. So, what will be my electron configuration? 1s. Ilang electron kaya ng s? Dalawa. Okay, so 1s, 2. So, yung 12 mo, minus 2 na. So, 10 electrons pa ang i-distribute mo. Okay? So, ano susunod? Saan mo ilalagay yung 10 sobrang electron? Gawa ko ulit ang diagonal. 2s. Ilan electrons kaya ng s? Dalawa lang. Okay? So, minus 2 dito. Ay, wala na nangyari. Ay. So, yan. So, minus 2. 8 yan. Okay? So, saan pa? May 8 pa tayong sobra. Saan masusunod na pupunta yung electrons? Sa 2p. Okay, so 2p. Ilan yung kaya ng 2p? 6. So, bakit 6? Kasi tatlo yung shapes kapag p orbital, di ba? O times 2 mo lang yon. You will get the maximum number of electrons for that orbital. Okay? So, ganun lang gagawin nyo. Kung ilan yung shape, times 2, yun yung dami ng electron na kaya ng orbital na yon. So, 6 to. Kasi tatlo yung shape eh. So, 3 times 2 is 6. May sobra pa tayo. 2. Saan susunod yan pupunta? Sa 3s, which is saktong 2. So that means the electron configuration of magnesium will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, and 3s2. Ganun lang, di ba? Easy lang. Gawa pa tayo ng iba pang example. Let's have yung medyo mahaba naman. Pahirapan natin sarili natin. Wait lang. Burahin ko lang. Kung gusto niyo mag-screenshot, go. Mag-isip ako ng element. Masipag tayo. Iodine. Sige. Clear ko lang tong screen, ha? Yan. So, let's do iodine. Ba tayo mag-full screen? Ayan. So, iodine tayo. Iodine. Ang atomic number ng iodine ay 53. So, since this is a neutral atom, wala tayong nakikitang charge, ibig sabihin, kung ilan yung protons, ganun karami yung electrons. So, gusto ko sabayan nyo ako pag magsasagot ako nito. Ang dami eh. Okay. So, kung ilan yung protons, ganun din karami yung electrons for a neutral atom. Okay? So, we have 53 protons for iodine. That means we also have 53 electrons to distribute. Okay? So, ayan. So, 53 electrons ang kailangan natin i-distribute. Saan tayo mag-start? Kunwari, nakalimutan mo, gawa kang Christmas tree. Okay, ganyan na lang muna. So, we have 53 electrons to distribute. Ito yung tally natin sa gilid. Okay, so start tayo. Saan pinaka-umpisa? 1s. So, 1s, ilang kaya ng s? Dalawa. Minus 2. 51. Okay. So, sunod will be 2s. 2s. Ilang kaya ng 2s? Dalawa ulit. Minus 2. That will be 49. Ang dami pang electrons. Sunod sa 2s will be 2p. Okay, so 2p. Ilan kaya ng p? 6. Bakit? Kasi we have 3 shapes for p orbitals. And each shape can contain 2 electrons. So 6 yun. So 2 times 3 is 6, di ba? So 49 minus 6, 43. Sobra pa. Susunod will be 3s. Okay, so dalawa sa 3s, no? So 43 minus 2, 41. Ang dami pa pala. Okay, so sunod, we'll have 3p. Okay? So 3p, ilang kaya? 6. Okay, so 6 minus 6, 35. Tama ba? 35. So followed by 3p, what will follow? 4s. Sunod will be 4s. Ilan kaya ng s? Dalawa lang. 35 minus 2, 33. So after 4s, ano susunod? 3d. Okay? So ilang kaya ng 3d? 10. Okay? So 10. Bakit 10? Kasi for d orbital, we have 5 shapes. So yun yung clover leaf and yung something na weird, no? Yung choco butternut na may donut. So yun. So 5 shapes yon in total. So that means if 2 electrons ang kaya per shape, then we have 10 electrons in total for d orbital. Okay? So yan. So yan, minus 10 natin to, minus 10. So that will be 23. Dami pa. Okay, so 4p. So ilan sa p? 6. Okay, so minus 6. This will be 17. Tama ba? O, tama. Followed by 5s. Dalawa sa 5s. So minus 2. Ilan to? 15. Dami pa. Okay, so 15 pa. Susunod, 4D. Okay, so 4D. Ilan sa D? 10. Minus 10. Ayan, malapit na. Then, lastly, 5P. Okay. So, since 6 yung kaya ng 5P, pwede naman lower than that yung ilagay mong electron. So, since 5 yung natitira sa atin, pasok yun lahat sa 5P. Eh, di dun mo lagay lahat. Okay? Minus 5 is 0. So, yan. Tapos na natin isulat ang kanyang electron configuration. So again, the electron configuration for iodine will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2, 3d10, 4p6, 5s2, 4d10, 5p5. Again, kung hindi nyo pa, wag na kayo mag-demonics dito ha. Yung si Sally pumunta sa party, si Daddy pumunta sa disco, penge pera, etc. So, wag nyo na kabisaduhin yan. Ganito na lang kayong Christmas tree method. Mas mabilis yan. Diagonal ka lang. Okay. Di ba kanina pa ako banggit. Kapag walang charge, equal yung protons sa electron. Ito question, what if may charge? Sige, pahirapan natin sarili natin. What if may charge yung ating atom? Screenshot nyo yan kung gusto nyo. Sige. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so clear ko na to. Pwede nyo naman balikan sa YouTube mamaya. What if may charge? Balik ulit tayo kay magnesium. So, magnesium, ang atomic number ay 12. What if yan ay may charge? Okay. Kunwari yan ay positive 2. Ano gagawin natin? Kapag yan ay may charge, ibig sabihin, pwedeng sobra or kulang yung electron. Okay? So kapag yan ay positive charge, that means kulang yan ng electron. Bakit? Remember, charge is equal to proton minus electron. So that means if positive ang difference ng charge, no? Positive ang difference na itong dalawa, meaning nun, mas maraming proton kaysa electron. So ibig sabihin, kulang nga sa proton, ay kulang siya sa electrons. Ang question is by how much? Ganito lang ang shortcut. Instead na mag-solve ka pa dyan, ganito lang gagawin mo. You get the atomic number, you subtract it sa positive charge. So 12 minus 2 is 10. Okay? So that means I have 10 electrons here. If you want to confirm, that will be, if you use this formula, that will be 12 minus 10 equals positive 2. Yun yung charge. Okay? So again, kapag positive yung charge niyan, ang gagawin nyo is, pag positive yung charge, this minus the positive charge. That will give you the electron. Paano po kapag negative? Ako na rin, negative sign naman. Ano meaning kapag negative sign? Sobra ng electron. Kasi kailan ito magne-negative, itong difference, kapag mas malaki yung electron kaysa sa proton. So, gano'ng kasobra yung electron? Kung ano yung charge, no? So, ito yung shortcut ko sa inyo. 8 plus yung 2. Huwag mo na isama yung negative. Okay? Kung kanina, kapag positive yan, isusubtract mo sila to get the electron. Kapag negative charge naman, baliktad. 8 plus yung number. Huwag mo na isama yung negative, ha? So, 8 plus 2 yan. So, that means 10 electrons to. Okay? So, ganon. Yan yung mga technique. Or if you want to be sure talaga, you can use the formula. Charge equals proton minus electron. Ilang protons? 8 minus 10. Pag pinag-subtract mo yung dalawa, negative 2. Di ba? So again, for you to easily count the electrons, kapag positively charged yan, pag subtractin mo lang yung dalawang number. This minus that equals electrons. Pag ito ay negatively charged, this plus this without the negative sign, that will give you the electron. So 8 plus 2 is 10. Okay? So, ganun yung shortcuts ko. Kaya isang tingin lang kailangan na may mental solve nyo na yung mga dami ng electrons. Okay? So, dito tayo. So, since we have 10 electrons, edi, distribute natin. So, hopefully, kabisado nyo na yung 1s, 2s, something, something. Pero kung hindi pa, you can use your cue cards. No? Pwede kayo gumamit ng index card sa akin. Okay, so, yan. So, saan tayo mag-umpisa? 1s. 1s, 2. So, dalawang electrons yon. Followed by 2s, 2 minus 2. 8 minus 2. So, 6. Then, 2p. Ilan yung kaya ng p? 6, no? So, 6. Wala na. So, bus na yung ating electrons. So, this is the electronic configuration of our magnesium 2+. Since the oxygen, 10 electrons din, so that means same lang din yung kanyang electronic configuration. Whenever we have chemical species that have the same electronic configuration, pero ibang element sila, we call them isoelectronic species. Ano ulit tawag natin sa isoelectronic species? No? Sila yung mga chemical substances, sila yung mga ions that have the same electronic configuration. Okay? So, basta pareha sila ng electronic configuration, we call them isoelectronic species. Okay? Kasi nasa quiz yun, kaya sinasabi ko na. Okay? So, ganun lang. Yun na yun. Next one. Bago natin tapusin yung ating discussion, isa pang round ng electron configuration. Isa pang round. Di ba napapansin nyo, yung ginawa ko sa iodine, sobrang dami, no? Sobrang haba ng ginawa ko. Okay, so, kung titignan nyo yung periodic table nyo, hindi naman ganun yung nakalagay doon. Di ba? Napansin nyo, may naka-square bracket followed by electron configuration. So, ano yun? Okay, so that is a shorthand way of writing the electron configuration. No? So, yun yung shorthand method wherein instead of writing the entire scientific notation pala. Instead of writing the entire electron configuration, what you're going to do is to cut the electronic configuration. Saan mo siya ika-cut? Kapag the electronic configuration corresponds to the noble gases. Anong dami ng electrons yung magko-correspond sa noble gases? Tignan nyo lang yung atomic number ng noble gas. For example, we have 2 electrons in your electron configuration. That will be helium. Pwede mo siya i-cut as helium followed by the remaining electron configuration. Let's have this for example. This could be abbreviated naman as neon 3s2. Paano nangyari yon? Paano natin na-abbreviate yan as this one? Ganito gagawin nyo. Ano yung atomic numbers ng noble gases? So for helium, we have 2. So that means if we have 2 electrons, that will correspond to helium. So that means this one will correspond to helium. Okay? Kasi 2 electrons yan eh. Then, kapag marami pang electrons sa right side, check mo pa, anong noble gas yung pwede pa. So, the next noble gas will be neon. So, that means, by the time you reach neon, 10 yung electrons na doon. Okay? So, bilangin mo yung electrons kung 10 na. So, 2, 4, plus 6, 10. So, that means, until dito, ang configuration niyan ay katumbas ni neon. Okay, so we have 2, 4 plus 6. That means 10 electrons. So that means these 10 electrons in the front part, iyan ay neon. Okay, so you can rewrite this part as square bracket of neon followed by the remaining electrons. Okay, so the remaining part of the electronic configuration. Ayan. May tawag tayo dito. Ang tawag natin sa in-abbreviate natin ay core electrons. So, ang tawag sa in-abbreviate ay core electrons. That means, ang tawag sa nasa labas ay valence electrons. So, what are valence electrons? These are electrons outside your atom. And sila yung ginagamit to form chemical bonds and chemical reactions. So, nag-i-intro na tayo for the next chapter next week, no? So, ganun lang. Our electron configuration can tell us what the core electrons are and ano yung valence electrons, no? Okay? So, yung valence electrons per group sa periodic table ay may similarity, no? So, madidiscuss yan sa lecture kung na-discuss na yung periodic trends. Doon kasi yan eh. Okay? So, madadaanan nyo yung valence electrons doon. Okay? Practice pa tayo, syempre, para mas masanay kayo. Punta tayo sa worksheet para masagutan na natin yung last part. Ay, may magnesium pala dito, no? Sinagutan ko na sila. Sagutan nyo na lang uli. Kunwari, di kayo aware. Anyway, ungraded to ha. Practice lang to. So, kayo bahala kung sasagutan nyo to or hindi. Pero ako, I will suggest you, sagutan nyo. Kasi practice to eh. Kasi yung kung ano yung nasa quiz, yun din yung usually na nilalagay ko sa sa worksheets. Okay? So, let's try this. Ayan. Yung silver pati bromine, kayo na bahala. Ang haba niyan eh. Pili na lang ako ng bagong elements. Para maiksi lang. Okay na to. So, last two na lang para goods na tayo. Okay? So, let's start with this one. Phosphorus, 15. Okay, so what we're going to do is to write its electron configuration. Okay, so again, pag nakalimutan Christmas tree, gawa ka ng Christmas tree. Ay, mali. Okay, so yan. So we have the Christmas tree here. So ilang electron meron sa phosphorus? We have 15 electrons kasi this is neutral atom. Kapag may charge, doon ka lang mag-a-adjust ng electrons. Okay? So since we have 15 electrons here, we're going to distribute all of them. So you start with 1s. Okay? So that will be 1s2. So 15 minus 2 is 13. Okay? So you proceed with 2s. So that will be 2s2. So ilan na yan? 11 na lang. You proceed with the next energy levels. So 2p, ilan kaya ng 2p? 6. And then 3s, ilan kaya ng 3s? 2. So ilan na electrons na distribute natin? So that's 2, 4, 10, 12. Tatlo pa. So tatlo pa. Ano yung susunod na energy level? 3p. So for 3p, since tatlo na lang yung natira, lagay mo na yung tatlo lahat dyan. Okay? So yan. So what's next? Pwede natin i-shortcut yan, no? I-shorthand notation natin yan. Paano? Bilangin mo kung ilang electrons yung nagko-correspond sa noble gases mo. For example, ang helium, that corresponds to 2 electrons. So ito yung first 2 electrons, ito yung helium. Ano susunod? Yung neon. Yung neon, that will correspond to the first 10 electrons kasi ang atomic number ng neon ay 10. Okay? So, the first 10 electrons will correspond to neon. Ano yung susunod na noble gas? Argon. Kaso 18 yon. 15 lang meron tayo. So, hanggang neon lang yung kaya. So, that means we can rewrite this as neon 3s2 3p3. Okay? So, that's one way to rewrite the electronic configuration in a shorthand notation. Ganun lang. Let's have 20. Calcium 20. So, since wala itong charge, try natin may charge. Positive 1. Although, hindi yan yung charge ni calcium, ha? Gusto ko lang positive 1. Okay. Ay, hindi. Palitan natin yung calcium. Kasi neon din. Neon din ba? Ay, hindi. Argon ba? Suppose let's have na lang, strontium 38. Pahirapan natin sarili natin. So we have strontium 38. Okay. So medyo kakailangan natin ng mas malaking ganito. So lang, continue mo lang to. Okay? So we have 38 electrons to deal with. Lalagyan ko pala ng charge, no? Kunwari positive 1. So again, kapag positive yung charge, ano gagawin mo? Proton minus kung ano yung number doon. So that's 38 minus 1. So that means I have 37 electrons. Okay? So I have 37 electrons to distribute. Kung hindi kayo sure, you can use the formula charge equals proton minus electron. So if your proton is 38, ano yung susubtract mo para maging 37? Para maging positive 1 yung charge. Ano yung susubtract mo sa 38 para maging positive 1 yan? Hindi 37. 37 ang electrons. Okay? So, yan. We have 37 electrons to deal with. Medyo matagal-tagal ulit ito. Lipat ko lang dito sa gilid. Yan. Okay, so yan. So let's start distributing the 37 electrons. Begin with 1s. So that will be 1s, 2. Gawa ako ng tally dito. So 38 minus 2, 36. Followed by 2s2, 2s2, minus 2, 34. Followed by 2p, then 3s. So 2p, 6 electrons, 3s, 2 electrons. So minus 6, ilan to? 28 minus 2, that will be 26. Tama ba? No, tama. Tama na. Okay. Dito pa talaga natagalan sa arithmetic na. Ayan. Okay, so 26 na meron tayo dito. 26. Okay. 26 na lang. Proceed tayo. Susunod will be 3p and 4s. 3p, 6, and 4s2. So 8 electrons yan in total, minus 8. So this will be 18. Okay. Followed by that is 3d. Okay. So that will be 3d 10. Minus 10. 8 na lang. Then 4p. 4p. 4p ano. 4p 6. So minus 6 to. So dalawa na lang natitira. Hindi. 37 pala na. Ba't ako nagkamali ng bilang? Okay, so anyway, this will be 5s1. So nagkamali ako ng subtraction ata kanina. So that will be 5s1 dapat. So check na lang natin, add natin lahat. So this will be 2 plus 2, 4 plus 6, 10 plus 2, 12 plus 6, 18 plus 2, 20 plus 10, 30. 30 ba? 30 na. Then plus 6 is 36, plus 1 is 37. Okay, so nagkamali lang ako ng sinubtract kanina. Okay? So yan. So we have all the 37 electrons distributed. Okay? So, let me rewrite this lang. Urong ko na tong ano natin, Christmas tree. Okay. So, ang last na gagawin natin for this one is to rewrite this in the shorthand notation. Again, paano yon? You check the atomic number of your noble gases, no? So, kung ilan electrons yung meron ka and in the beginning, that will correspond your noble gas configuration. Okay? So, for example, helium, dalawang atomic number niya. So, that means the first two electron will represent helium. Next one will be neon. So the first 10 electrons will represent neon. So 2, 2, and 6. Ito yung 10. So yan yung neon. Okay, so since marami pa tayo sa kanan, let's proceed. Ano yung susunod na noble gas? After neon, we have argon. Argon, which is 18. So bilang tayo 18 from the beginning. So this is 2 plus 2, 4 plus 6, 10 plus 2, 12 plus 6, 18. So that means hanggang dito yung argon. Okay? So hanggang dyan yung argon. Ang dami pa sa kanan. Tingin tayo sa next noble gas. Krypton, which will be 36. Okay. So 36. So that will be 2 plus 2, 4 plus 6, 10 plus 2, 18 na to, di ba? 18 plus 2, 20 plus 10, 30 plus 6, 36. Okay, so that means yung sakop ni Krypton hanggang dito. And whatever is left is your valence electron. So we can condense this entire electronic configuration as krypton 5s1. So that means this portion, itong portion na yan, ang tawag dyan ay core electron. And our core electron corresponds to the noble gas. Okay? The noble gas electronic configuration. Okay, so paano uli na determine yan? Bilangin mo lang kung ano yung atomic number ng noble gas, then hanapin mo kung pang ilang electron yung noble gas dito sa inyong electron configuration. For example, helium, 2 yung atomic number niya. So that means the first 2 electrons will be helium. Argon, 18 electrons yan. So that means the first 18 electrons will represent argon. Krypton, 36. So that means the first 36 electrons will correspond to krypton. And so on and so forth. Okay? So the core electron is the electrons that are in the inner part of the atom, and the 5s1 is called the valence electrons. And these valence electrons are responsible for chemical reactions that will be discussed next week na. Okay? So that's all for today. Yun lang yung ganap natin today. Okay? So anyway, before ko i-end na yung discussion, post ko na dito yung copy ng PowerPoint, so you have a copy na. By the way, yung PowerPoint may in-skip akong parts doon kasi masyadong technical yung ibang parts doon. I mean, pang BS Chem kasi yung ano na yun. So may equation doon na hindi nyo naman gagamitin. No? So share ko na lang sa inyo. Ang gusto lang naman natin kunin doon is yung idea. Okay? Okay, so if you have any questions, you may ask na po. Or kung wala na, wait na lang tayo. Ipapost ko lang to sa chat box natin. When is the deadline po ng experiment data sheet number 1? Ang deadline niyan would be, sabi ko last week would be until Saturday. Okay. Pero kung gusto niyo magpasa Sunday, okay lang. Kasi babasahin ko pa yan isa-isa, no? Magpasa na kayo agad na by Sunday, okay? Para before mag-close, yun, pwede kayo magpasa. Speaking of experiment data sheet, no? Meron din palang experiment data sheet for the laboratory. Nakwento ko na naman to last week, no? So, teka lang. Buksan ko lang canvas ko. So again na, yung experiment 1 worksheet that will be good until Sunday. Pakipasa na lang para mabasa ko na agad, no? Para mag-gradean ko na rin agad. Don't worry, mabait naman tayo sa grades. Okay. Ito yung experiment number 2, guide question. Na-discuss ko na to last Tuesday, pero balikan uli natin para maalala nyo. Okay. So ganun pa rin, same as experiment 1. You will edit this file. Okay. Yung data natin dito will come from the videos for the experiment discussion. So asan yung video na yon? Punta ka lang sa first part, okay? Sa home page. Then ito, may dalawang videos dyan. Tatlong videos. Tatlong videos ba? Dalawang videos pala. Ito. Dito tayo sa chapter 2, flame test. So panoorin nyo itong Bunsen burner and yung flame test. Okay, so panoorin nyo yung dalawang yan. Ayun, so panoorin nyo lang yung dalawang yan. Then, doon nyo kukunin yung data nyo for your experiment guide. Okay? Kunwari, kulay yellow to. Lagay mo dyan, yellow. Ano yung wavelength? Hanapin mo yung wavelength. Hanapin mo yung wavelength. Asan ba yung wavelength? Ito, labo na mata ko eh. And so on and so forth. Okay? So, ganun. Itong flame intensity, kung ano na lang yung kulay niya, Yung duration, kahit wag nyo nalagyan yung duration kasi hindi naman natin ginawa sa lab eh. Kinakat ko kasi yung video nun. Ako yung nag-edit ng mga videos eh. Yung first, yung video lang sa Chap, sa Bunsen burner, lab operation, pati itong flame test, pati yung chemical reaction, yun yung mga inedit ko. So, alam ko kung saan siya mapuputol. Okay? So, wag nyo nalagyan tong duration. Okay, then answer the questions as usual. Again, please be concise. 2 to 3 sentences are good. Okay? So, wag na kayo magkwento in the beginning, blah, blah, blah. Wag na ganun. Ano lang, sabihin mo lang, kasi ganito po, ganyan. Yan, tapos. Para mag-grade na natin agad, okay? So, yun lang. So, again, kailan mag-open yung submission box na ito? The submission box for experiment 2 will open next week pa naman. So, you still have time to work on, to work with your experiment 1 data sheet. So, alam ko yung iba hindi pa gumagawa na. Ganyan din naman ako ng student ako. Pero, habol kayo sa deadline, ha? So, yan. Kailan po deadline ng experiment 2? So, since ang experiment 2, i-open ko siya next week, ang deadline nun will be Sunday next week. Okay? So, the following Sunday. Okay? Kasi, kuha tayo calendar. Teka lang. Buksan natin yung kalendaryo. Pero wag niyo pa abutin ng deadline ha. Pasa na kayong kung tapos niyo na agad. Dali lang naman yun doon. Essay lang naman eh. Tagal magbukas ng calendar. Wait lang natin. Okay, so ito kasi tayo. Saan ba tayo? So, nung Tuesday ko inopen ata yung yung submission box. So, that's why sa 7 yung magiging deadline natin. Okay? Then, next week, i-open ko yung submission box for the yung submission box for experiment 2. So, dito ko siya i-open. So, birthday ng classmate ko. So, dito nyo, so i-open ko yung starting Tuesday and then the end will be about, this portion, mga 14 din. Okay? So, ganun lang. Then, sa experiment 3, hindi ganun din. Pero wag nyo na paabutin ng Sunday, ha? Ang dami naman time between Tuesday and Sunday. Okay, so you have plenty of time to work on your data sheets. No? Ayun. So, ganun na lang. So, pasa na lang kayo. Kung kaya nyo na bukas, pasa nyo na rin bukas. Then, mag-start na ako mag-grade. Okay? So, ganun. So, yun lang. Again, panoorin nyo na lang yung videos for that. No? So, yun. That would be all. Ito, upload ko na yung PowerPoint na ginamit ko today for your reference. Andiyan na siya sa chat box natin. Okay? Anything else? Or okay na tayo? Clarify lang po. Sasagutan din po ba yung table sa datasheet 1 or guide questions lang po? Yung sa experiment 1, yung sa experiment 1, yung table doon, hindi nyo siya sasagutan. 'Di ba? Hindi nyo sasagutan yung table sa experiment 1 kasi wala tayong data. Okay? Kasi yun yung ginagawa sa lab eh. Ang sasagutan nyo lang sa experiment 1 ay yung guide question sa dulo. Yung essay part. Puti-puti ko pala. Yung essay part pati yung yung solving. For experiment 2, ang sasagutan nyo ay yung table pati yung guide questions. Bakit kasama yung table? Kasi nasa video yung sagot. Nasa video yung colors, nasa video yung basta nasa video yung colors ng ng flame for each type of metals. Okay? So ganun. Sir, may meeting po ba tayo sa Friday? Chinese New Year po kasi yun. Let's wait for the announcement. Check ko lang. Ay, public holiday siya. Gong Shi Fat Kai, no? So, Chinese New Year, Feb 12. Feb 12 will be nga, Friday. So, nakalagay dito sa FEU calendar ko, nasa harap ko, that's a public holiday. So, walang pasok. Eh. So, yan. Kala nyo kayo lang masaya pag walang pasok. Ayan. So, wala tayong pasok ng Friday na yan. Okay? Pero let's wait for the formal announcement next week. Okay? So, yan. Ayan. Ayan lang. Okay. So, yan. Again, sa experiment, sa worksheet, hindi pala sa worksheet number 2. Ayun. Sagutan nyo yung worksheet. No? Upload ko yung answers by weekends. Tapos, yung experiment data sheet, sa experiment 1, ang sasagutan nyo lang ay yung guide question. For experiment 2, ang sasagutan nyo yung table and yung guide questions. Yung table, yung sagot doon, mapapanood nyo sa video. Okay? So, nasa video yan. Tignan nyo lang color. Okay? So, yan lang. So, yan. I think we're good to go na. Or may any other questions pa? Again, the deadline for experiment data sheet 1 will be on Sunday. Pero wag niyo na paabutin ng Sunday. Okay? Para ano, wag niyo na paabutin ng Sunday para marami kayong time for yourself. Okay? Para makapagpahinga din kayo. Okay, so I think that would be all for today. No? So thank you for being with me today. No? So I hope that you will enjoy your weekends. No? So stay safe, God bless, and ingat. No? So bye-bye. A copy of the class recording will be uploaded on YouTube. No? So ingat po and enjoy your weekend. No? Ayan, salamat.